The city was alive with noise, glowing lights, and the sound of thousands of voices mixing together. Aliens of every kind moved through the streets. Tall creatures with silver scales, small beings with wings, and traders shouting in strange tongues. But in the middle of this busy world walked a girl who did not belong. Her skin was marked with glowing lines that pulsed like fire under her flesh. Her eyes shimmered too brightly, and her steps seemed too soft for the hard ground. No one wanted her close. Mothers pulled their children away when she passed. Merchants turned their faces and pretended not to see her. Some even threw dust or stones at her feet, calling her cursed. The whispers followed her like shadows. She brings ruin. Stay away from her. Bad luck follows her. She had grown used to the cruel words, but no matter how much she tried to harden her heart, each word cut deep. She lived on the edge of the city. Near broken ruins where no one else stayed, her home was nothing more than cracked stone and a roof that leaked when storms came. Every morning she walked into the city to find food, and every morning the stairs reminded her she was alone. The others walked in groups, laughing, trading, building friendships. While she walked in silence, her arms wrapped tight around herself as if to shield her from their eyes. She remembered being a child when she had asked her mother why she looked so different. Her mother never answered, only lowered her head and wept. Her father never spoke of it either, but the neighbors did. They said she carried a mark of some forgotten war, that her blood was tainted by enemies who had once tried to destroy their world. As the years passed, the stories grew darker, and soon people stopped speaking to her at all. On this night, the markets were full. The glow of lanterns painted the streets gold. Laughter echoed in the air, yet for her, it all felt distant. She moved through the crowd like a shadow that no one wanted to touch. A child saw her and began to cry. His mother pulled him away, whispering a prayer as if to protect him. She looked down at her own hands, the glowing lines trembling faintly. She wondered if maybe they were right. Maybe she really was cursed. She walked past a stall selling fruit. The merchant frowned and covered his goods with cloth, as if her gaze alone would spoil them. Her stomach tightened with hunger, but she turned away without a word. She had learned that begging only brought more insults. She moved further into the dim alleys, where the noise of the crowd faded. Here broken lights flickered, and the smell of smoke filled the air. In the silence of the alley, her loneliness pressed heavy on her chest. She leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. She thought of the stars she sometimes saw at night, shining freely in the sky. None of them looked cursed. None of them were rejected. She wished she could fly to them, escape this city, escape the pain of being unwanted, but even in the shadows, danger followed her. Two boys crept close, their eyes sharp with cruelty. "Outcast," one spat. "Why are you here? Go back to the ruins where you belong." They pushed her shoulder. Laughing when she stumbled, she said nothing, only pulled her cloak tighter and walked away. The laughter chased her, ringing louder in her ears than the sounds of the busy market. She wondered if this was how her life would always be. Walking streets filled with voices, but never hearing one spoken kindly to her. Living in a city of lights, but always standing in the dark. Deep down, a small, fragile part of her still hoped for change. Still wished for one soul who might see her as more than a curse. But the hope was so faint it almost hurt to keep it alive. As she reached the edge of the alley, the wind carried a sound. A voice unlike the others, softer, warmer. It made her pause and lift her head. She turned, but the crowd was too far. No one seemed near. She shook her head, thinking it was only her imagination. Yet for the first time in many years, her heart beat faster, as if sensing that something, or someone, was about to break the silence of her lonely world. The night air was cool, and the city lights flickered like broken stars. She walked slower than usual, her cloak pulled tight, her heart still heavy from the insults thrown at her earlier. The alleys were quieter now, yet something felt different, as if the air itself was holding its breath. She stopped, sensing eyes on her. She turned, but the shadows only showed empty walls and fading lanterns. Then she saw him, a stranger standing at the far end of the street. His clothes were simple, not like the flowing robes of the alien traders. And his face was different too. His skin smooth and pale under the weak light. His eyes steady, not filled with fear or hate like the others. He did not look away when her glowing lines pulsed across her hands. Instead, he stepped closer, slow and careful, as if he knew sudden moves might frighten her. Her first thought was to escape. No one ever came near her without reason. Usually it meant more pain, more cruel words. But his steps were not heavy with anger. There was something calm about him, something she had never felt from another being. She backed away into the corner of the alley, ready to vanish into the ruins. But then his voice reached her, low and gentle. "You are beautiful," he whispered. The words struck her harder than any stone ever had. For a moment she did not breathe, her eyes widened. She wondered if she had heard him wrong. Maybe it was only the wind playing tricks. But his gaze was still on her, steady, certain, as if he truly meant it. No one had ever spoken such words to her. No one had dared. Her throat felt dry, her lips parted, but no sound came out. She wanted to ask why. Why would anyone say that to her, when all her life she had been told she was cursed? Dangerous, unwanted, her hands trembled, the glowing lines flickering brighter, as if reacting to his voice. She quickly hid them beneath her cloak, afraid he would change his mind once he saw the truth. But he didn't look away. He didn't step back. Instead, he moved closer, his voice softer now. "I saw how they treated you. I don't understand their fear. I only saw someone standing alone," she shook her head. Whispering back, "No, you don't know what I am." Her voice cracked, half warning, half pleading. They are right to stay away. She wanted to push him back, to protect herself from the cruel disappointment that would surely come. Yet some part of her ached to believe his words. The human smiled faintly, a kindness in his eyes she had never seen before. "I know what I see," he said. "And what I see is not a curse." Her chest tightened, confusion twisting with a warmth she had never felt. Could someone really mean this? Or was it another trick? Another cruel game to break her heart further? She searched his eyes for lies, but found none. The honesty there frightened her more than any insult. The silence of the alley grew heavy around them. Her pulse raced. She wanted to run, but her feet would not move. She had been called many names: monster, shadow, curse, but never beautiful. The word echoed in her mind, wrapping around the fragile hope she had buried deep. But the city never allowed peace for long. Footsteps echoed from the street beyond. Harsh voices carried closer, guards making their rounds. She froze, panic rising. If they saw her with him, if they saw someone speaking to the outcast, they would not forgive it. They would punish them both. Her eyes darted to him, begging him silently to leave before it was too late. But he did not move. His hand lowered slightly, as if ready to reach for her. Not with force, but with choice, with trust. The sound of the guards drew nearer, the glow of their lanterns spreading along the walls. She whispered sharply, "Go now, or they will hurt you." Her voice was filled with fear for him, not herself. She had suffered enough to know the cost. But to her surprise, he only shook his head, his whisper cutting through the darkness once more. "I'm not leaving you." Her heart pounded so loudly she thought the guards would hear it. She felt trapped between fear and something new, something dangerous yet fragile. Hope. The kind of hope that could change everything. As the shadows of the guards fell across the alley, she realized the human had already made a choice. And perhaps, for the first time in her life, she would have to make one too. The guards' shadows stretched long against the walls, their armored boots striking the ground with sharp rhythm. Lanterns swung in their hands, spilling light into the alley. She pulled her cloak tighter around her glowing lines, her breath quickening. She had learned long ago that being caught in their path never ended well. The human stood firm beside her, calm yet alert, his eyes scanning the alley as if already planning their escape. She wanted to shout at him again to leave, to run while there was still a chance. But something in his presence anchored her, a strange steadiness she had never felt before. The guards turned into the alley, 3 of them, tall and broad with metal plates on their arms and long weapons strapped to their backs. Their eyes caught the faint shimmer of her markings beneath her cloak, and their faces twisted into disgust. "There she is," one snarled. "The cursed one," another sneered. "And now she lures strangers too." Their voices carried venom, as if her very existence offended them. Her heart pounded. She stepped back, pressing against the wall, ready to retreat into the darkness. But the human moved slightly forward, his body angled as though shielding her, his voice steady. "She's done nothing wrong." The guards laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "Nothing wrong?" One barked, "Her kind should not even walk among us. She poisons this city with her presence." Another guard stepped closer, gripping the handle of his weapon, his eyes narrowing at the human. "And you, off-worlder? Don't meddle with things you don't understand." Fear twisted in her chest, but beneath it a flicker of something else. Shock. No one had ever spoken for her. No one had ever risked facing the guards because of her. Yet here this human stood, a stranger who owed her nothing. Refusing to step away, the lead guard raised his hand. Signaling the others to surround them, the lantern light caught the edges of their weapons, gleaming sharp. "This is your last warning," he growled. "Walk away, human, or share her punishment." The air grew heavy. Her markings beneath her cloak pulsed faster, responding to her fear, a faint glow slipping through the fabric. One of the guards noticed and hissed, "See, she cannot even hide it. The curse burns inside her." She trembled, pressing her arms tighter around herself. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Please don't fight them. They will kill you." She wasn't afraid for herself. She had lived with pain her whole life, but the thought of the human suffering because of her made her stomach twist. But he did not step back, his jaw set, his eyes locked on the guards. He spoke quietly but firmly. "I will not leave her," the guard snarled. One stepped forward and shoved him hard against the wall. The sound echoed. She gasped, her markings flaring brighter beneath her cloak. The guards saw it and drew their weapons. Metal glinting in the dim light, something inside her broke. A sharp pain tore through her chest, not from the shove or the insult, but from the sight of him standing there, taking the blow meant for her. She had lived her whole life with no one willing to stand at her side, and now, in one moment, she might lose the only soul who ever did. Her markings burned hot, brighter than ever before. The glow spread up her arms, leaking through the thin fabric of her cloak. The guard's eyes widened. "She's losing control!" One shouted, raising his weapon. But before he could strike, the human grabbed his arm. Twisting it sharply, the guard staggered, unprepared for the strength. The alley erupted into chaos, lanterns swinging, shadows crashing against walls. The human moved fast, blocking one strike and dodging another. Though unarmed, his training showed in every motion. Yet 3 against 1 was not fair, and each second pushed him closer to the ground. She pressed back against the wall, her fear and fury clashing inside her, the glow racing across her body, her power begging to be released. But she had always been told it was dangerous, that it would only bring death if she let go. She might destroy everything around her, even him. The guards closed in, one raising his blade high. Ready to end the human's defiance, her eyes widened, her breath caught. She could not let it happen. Her voice tore from her throat, a cry filled with years of pain and loneliness. Her markings exploded in light, the alley filled with blinding brilliance. The guards stumbled back, shielding their eyes, their weapons clattering against stone. The air vibrated as energy cracked through the ground. Splitting stone beneath her feet, she stood trembling, the glow racing like fire across her skin, her cloak falling away in shreds. The guards stared in shock, fear flooding their faces. But the human's gaze was different. Steady, calm, filled not with horror but awe. While the others stumbled in terror, he whispered again. "Beautiful," her heart shook. Fear and hope colliding as the chaos around them grew. She realized the danger was far from over. The guards would call for more, the council would hear of this. And now, because of him, because of that one word, her life would never be the same again. The city did not sleep, even after the clash in the alley. Whispers spread like fire through the markets and courtyards. People spoke of blinding light, of cursed power awakened, of guards who fled in fear. Her name, once whispered with disgust, was now spoken with fear. And yet one detail puzzled them all. A human had stood with her, not against her. She hid for days in the broken ruins at the edge of the city, her body trembling with the memory of the light she had released. Her markings still glowed faintly, restless as if something inside her had awakened fully. She feared herself more than before, but in the silence of the night, another fear grew stronger, the thought of never seeing him again. On the 4th night, she heard footsteps in the ruins. Steady, deliberate, not the heavy march of guards, but lighter. Cautious, she held her breath. Crouched behind shattered stone, then she saw him. The human stepping through the dust, his clothes torn from the fight, but his eyes clear. He had come back, her voice cracked when she whispered, "Why are you here? It's not safe. If they find you near me, they will kill you." He looked at her, calm and steady as always. I promised I wouldn't leave you. The words carried no hesitation, as if danger meant nothing compared to the weight of that promise. She felt her chest tighten. Her whole life no one had returned for her. No one had risked punishment to stand by her side. Now he sat on the broken stone near her, as if the ruined place was not shameful but simply a shelter. For the first time she did not feel like a ghost, haunting the edges of the city. She felt seen. They spoke in whispers, careful, their voices weaving stories between the cracks of silence. He told her of Earth, of oceans that stretched beyond the horizon, of skies that burned red at dawn. She listened, eyes wide, her imagination painting pictures she had never dared dream before. In return, she shared fragments of her past, the loneliness, the stares, the cruelty, the endless weight of being different. He listened without judgment, his eyes never flinching. Night after night he returned, always cautious, always careful. They walked together under broken lanterns, sometimes through the abandoned quarters where no one lived anymore, sometimes along the cliffs where the city lights faded into the distance. Each step beside him was dangerous, but each step was also freedom, a life she had never known. But shadows still followed them. Unseen eyes lingered at the edge of the ruins, figures cloaked in darkness watching their every move. They were not guards, not councilmen, but something older, a secret faction that had long waited for her powers to surface. And now, seeing her with a human, they whispered among themselves, "The bond will awaken more than light." She did not know of these watchers. All she knew was the warmth of his presence, the strange way his voice calmed the storm inside her. When she felt the glow rise in her markings, threatening to burn out of control, his hand steadying her wrist was enough to quiet it. When she trembled with fear of being hunted, his whisper, "You are not alone," was enough to still her heart. One night, as they sat under the cracked dome of an abandoned hall, rain dripping through holes above, he asked softly, "Do you ever wonder why you have this power?" She looked away, her voice hollow. "It only brings me pain. It is not a gift. It is a curse." But he shook his head. "A curse does not protect. A curse does not shine. Maybe it is not the power that is cursed. Maybe it is the people who refuse to see it." Her eyes filled with tears. His words were dangerous. Blasphemy against the council, yet they struck deep. As if carving a new truth inside her, she wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that she was more than what the world called her. But belief was heavy. It carried risk. It carried hope. And hope was the sharpest blade of all. Thunder rolled across the sky. She turned her face upward, the rain sliding over her glowing lines. For once, she did not try to hide them. She let them shine. And beside her, the human only smiled, as if the sight was not frightening, but breathtaking. She felt her bond with him tightening, weaving stronger with each secret meeting. But deep in her chest, a whisper of fear remained. Bonds were not invisible. Sooner or later, someone would notice. And when they did, the city would not forgive them. Not her, and especially not him. The bond they built in secret could not stay hidden forever. Shadows grew longer around them, and whispers followed even into the ruins. She began to feel eyes watching her whenever she walked. The marketplace turned colder. Merchants no longer just avoided her. They studied her with quiet fear, as if waiting for something to happen. One night, when she returned from meeting him under the broken dome, her ruined shelter felt different, the air inside heavy, disturbed. She froze at the doorway, her instincts sharp. Then she saw it. A mark scratched into the stone near her bed. A symbol she had seen carved on council banners. It meant one word: traitor. Her chest tightened. They knew the next evening. She waited for him in the ruins, but he did not come. The minutes dragged into hours. The silence around her louder than any storm. Fear curled inside her. Had the council caught him? Had he been punished for standing by her side? Her mind spun with images of chains and fire, of him dragged through the city streets because of her. When he finally appeared, his steps were uneven, his face bruised, his clothes torn. She rushed to him, her voice breaking. "What did they do?" He sat down, wincing. "They questioned me. They wanted to know why I spoke to you. They warned me to stay away or face exile." His eyes met hers, steady even through the pain. "I told them no." Her heart sank, guilt twisting deep. "You should have lied. You should have left me." But he shook his head, his voice calm. "I will not betray you. His words cut through the darkness, but so did the danger. The council did not forgive defiance, and soon their cruelty showed one night as they walked through the quiet alleys. Torches flared around them, guards poured from the shadows. Armored and armed, she gasped, stepping back. Their circle closed fast. There was no escape. The lead guard's voice was harsh, echoing off the stone. The outcast has poisoned a human's mind. She spreads her curse like disease. Both will answer to the council. The human stepped forward, blocking their path. She is not cursed, she is not poison. But his words only fueled their rage. The guard surged, seizing him by the arms. Dragging him back, she screamed, reaching for him, her markings glowing bright. The guards struck her down, heavy blows raining against her shoulders and back. She fell to her knees, her cloak torn, her hands scraping against the stone. Their voices spat venom. "Stay down, shadow creature. You belong in the dirt." Her tears burned, not from pain, but from the sight of him struggling in their grip, shouting her name, refusing to stop even as fists struck his face. Her chest felt like it would break, all the fragile hope she had built with him cracking apart in that moment. Perhaps she was a fool to believe love could exist for someone like her. Perhaps the whispers had been right all along. Loneliness was her fate, but the despair awakened something deeper, a spark in her soul that flared hotter than fear. As the guards dragged him away, her body trembled, the glow of her markings spreading across her skin like fire. Light burst from her eyes. Her cry of pain and fury shook the ground. Stones cracked beneath her. The guards staggered back, their grips loosening. The human looked at her, blood on his face, but his gaze was filled not with fear, not with horror, only awe. He whispered across the chaos, his voice breaking yet steady. "Don't stop. Fight." Her tears mixed with the glow, her despair twisting into power. She rose from the ground, her body a storm of light and flame. The guards who had called her a curse now stumbled back in terror, some dropping their weapons, others calling for reinforcements. For the first time in her life, she was not running, not hiding. She was standing. The betrayal of the city still burned in her chest. But so did something stronger, the bond that even cruelty could not break. And in that moment she realized she was not powerless, and she was not alone. The city had never seen such light. The ruined alley blazed as if a second sun had risen from the ground. Her markings burned brighter than fire, lines of power racing across her skin, her eyes glowing like twin stars. The guards who had mocked her fell back in terror, their armor clattering, their voices breaking with panic. "She's a weapon. She's a monster," they shouted, but their fear only made her glow stronger. The human, still bruised and bloodied, stood chained by their grip, yet his gaze never wavered. While others screamed, he whispered only one word. "Beautiful." She turned, trembling, her heart racing, afraid he would now see her as the monster they always claimed. But his eyes held no fear, only awe, only truth. Her body shook. The power inside her felt wild, dangerous, as if it could destroy everything. The ground cracked beneath her feet, stone splitting into jagged lines of fire. Nearby walls crumbled, windows shattered. The guards stumbled in chaos. One raised his weapon, his hand shaking. "Kill her before she burns the whole city." But before he could strike, the weapon melted in his grasp, warped by the heat of her energy. She gasped, clutching her chest, the glow spilling like rivers across her arms. She whispered to herself, "This is what they feared. This is what I am." Despair clawed at her. But then she saw him again, the human fighting against the guards, straining to reach her, shouting, "It's not a curse, it's yours. Control it." His voice cut through the roar of her power. Anchoring her in the storm, she closed her eyes, trying to breathe, trying to remember his words from the nights they shared. The way he had said her power might not be a curse, the way he had believed when no one else would. Slowly, she lifted her hands, letting the light flow outward instead of fighting it. The wild storm began to shift, no longer thrashing but bending, shaping. Like a river finding its path, the guards froze, watching in horror as the light curved into wings behind her, glowing arcs stretching wide, not of flame or destruction, but of pure radiance. She floated slightly above the broken ground, her shadow stretching long across the walls. For the first time, she felt not cursed, not broken, but whole. The human's chains cracked under the pulse of her light. He stumbled free, his eyes locked on her, amazement softening into something deeper, something unspoken. He stepped toward her carefully, as if approaching sacred fire. "You don't see it, do you?" he whispered. "You think you're a monster? But I see salvation." Her heart shook at his words, her voice weak. "Salvation cannot be born from fear," he shook his head. "Then let it be born from love." The word struck her harder than any blow. She faltered, the light dimming for a heartbeat, tears streaming down her face. She had never been loved, not once in her entire life. But before the moment could settle, horns blared across the city, the sound sharp and heavy. Warning the council, calling the armies, more guards poured into the streets, their armor shining, their weapons humming with deadly energy, the light of her markings reflected in their helmets. This was no longer just a patrol, it was war. The crowd gathered at the edges, ordinary citizens whispering in fear. Some screamed to kill her, others whispered uncertainly. Seeing the human stand at her side, seeing the glow that looked less like destruction and more like something holy. The city was divided in that instant, half ready to burn her, half unable to look away. She stood in the center of it all, trembling, torn between fear and the bond that anchored her, her voice shaking as she whispered to him, "If I fight, they will never forgive me." He stepped closer, his hand reaching hers, unafraid of the heat still burning in her skin. "Then don't fight for forgiveness. Fight for yourself." In that moment, she realized the truth. She had not been abandoned because she was cursed. She had been abandoned because they feared what she could become. Her power was not her shame, it was her gift, and with him beside her, she would no longer run from it. The revelation burned inside her as the armies closed in. The choice no longer to hide or flee, but to rise, to become more than the name of outcast they had given her. And with the human at her side, she was ready to begin. The horns echoed until even the ruins trembled. The armies of the council filled the streets like a river of steel. Shields locked, weapons charged, their steps thundered as one. The people lined the rooftops and alleys, whispering, some with fear, some with awe. Never had they seen the outcast so alive. Never had they seen her glow with such power. She stood at the center, her body wrapped in light, the human at her side, his hand holding hers steady. Her markings blazed brighter than the torches of the city. Her eyes burned with fire and tears. She felt the weight of every insult, every stone thrown, every lonely night pressed into this moment, and yet beneath it all, a fragile voice whispered inside her. Choice. She still had a choice. The commander of the council's army stepped forward, his voice loud, carrying across the square. "Creature of shadow, surrender now. Your power is a threat. Your bond with the human a stain upon our city. Kneel, and we may spare you," the crowd murmured, some nodding, others frowning. The tension of 1,000 eyes pressing against her chest. The human's hand tightened in hers, steady and warm, his voice low but strong. "Don't kneel," she turned to him, her lips trembling. "If I resist, they will destroy me. And you." But he shook his head, his eyes unshaken. "If you kneel, you destroy yourself," her heart pounded, the markings on her arms flaring with every beat. She felt the storm of her power building, begging to be unleashed. Her body ached to fight, to burn down those who had chained her, mocked her, hunted her. She could almost see it, fire tearing through the council's walls, their banners falling in ash, their soldiers scattering like dust. Revenge called to her like a sweet promise. But then she looked at him, standing bruised and unarmed. His eyes filled not with anger but with faith, and she heard his voice from that first night in the alley, whispering words no one else had dared. "You are beautiful." The memory struck her like lightning. Cutting through the storm, the commander raised his arm. The soldiers moved, weapons glowing. The air buzzed with deadly energy. The people gasped, expecting blood. But she lifted her hand high, her light flooding the square, brighter than the weapons, brighter than the torches. The soldiers halted, blinded, frozen in awe. Her voice rang out, stronger than it had ever been. "You call me cursed, yet you fear me because you know I am more. You call me shadow, yet you hide in darkness while I stand in light. You call me alone, yet here beside me stands one who chose me. Not with chains, not with fear, but with love." The word love carried through the crowd like fire on dry grass. Gasps echoed, whispers rose. Some cried out that it was madness. Others lowered their heads, uncertain for the first time. Doubt cracked the armor of hate. The commander snarled, "Lies! Tricks of a monster!" He thrust his weapon forward. The army surged again. But she did not unleash fire. She spread her hands wide, the light pouring not in destruction, but in protection. A dome of brilliance enveloped her and the human. The soldiers' strikes shattered against it, sparks falling harmlessly. The people gasped again, not at a weapon of war, but at a shield of light. The human's voice rose beside her. Strong and unshaken, she is not your monster. She is not your curse. She is your mirror, and you cannot stand what you see. His words cut deep. Silence fell heavy. She felt the storm inside her calm. The choice clear now. She could destroy them, yes, but then she would become the very curse they named her. Instead, she chose the harder path, to stand, to shine, to endure. Her power was not for revenge. It was for hope. Tears slid down her glowing face as she whispered, "I will not kneel, and I will not destroy. I will stand." Her voice trembled, but her light did not. It held strong. The soldiers faltered. Their steps uncertain, the crowd wavered. The balance of the city shifting in that fragile breath, and in the silence, the human whispered again, soft but sure, "Beautiful." And she knew her choice was true.